My name is Jenna. Me and my friends Taylor, Ian, and Mandy love watching those ghost hunter type shows where they explore abandoned places and hunt landmarks and things like that. Recently, there was an episode on our favorite show where they explored an abandoned asylum in our town, Mayland. We all decided not to watch the episode and instead explore the asylum ourselves this coming Halloween in 2 days. After coming home from Taylor's house that day, I immediately started regretting my decisions. I didn't think I was ready to experience this from the other side of the TV. The day we were supposed to leave for the asylum, I had told my sister that if I didn't return home by 9 p.m., to call the police to send them to the asylum immediately. She tried to stop me before I left, but I assured her that I would be fine. I wasn't even sure of that myself. As I was gathering my things, I brought a tiny pocket knife, a padlock, a flashlight, and a Bible. I didn't think to bring any ghost detection materials because I assumed someone else in the group would do so. After gathering my stuff, I told my mother I was going to Annie's house for a Halloween party. She was the only friend in the group my mother trusted, so she let me go. We all gathered at Mandy's house beforehand. The girls were making jokes and laughing about the whole experience, like we were going to some sort of amusement park. The only person who was discomforted I could see was Taylor's. She sat in the kitchen with tears in her eyes. I asked her why she was upset. She said it was no big deal and that she would just suck it up for the girls. Taylor was the one driving us and I was sitting in the backseat with Mandy. The asylum was nowhere near the house. It was about a 45-minute drive. After some long minutes, we could see the asylum immediately. It was a giant building with almost 0 windows. Mandy asked us, "Should we really be doing this?" Nobody replied. I'm sure we'll be fine," Taylor said, trying to play it cool. We all looked at each other and decided to do it anyways. This was really happening. The door was a little rusty, but the facility inside didn't look completely horrible. There was rust on some parts of the iron gates that covered the cells, some broken tiles and dirt in some places, but it wasn't as bad as we thought. The one thing we almost couldn't handle was the smell. It was the most vile thing we had ever smelled. We put on the face mask that Mandy brought with her. Taylor called out, "Hello, is anybody here?" She held on an EMF meter and waved it around. I held my breath. It remained in the shades of green, indicating that there probably weren't very many ghosts around us. Thank God. She continued to hold it in front of her as we walked from the reception to the main hallway. It continued to flash light green, close to yellow but not yet there. By this point, we were all huddled up while walking and holding hands and locking arms. Suddenly, we heard a beep from the EMF meter. Yellow. It had flashed yellow and a little yellow as Taylor called out again, "Is anybody here?" Tears began to pull in my eyes. It flashed to green again. Taylor pulled out her next ghost hunting device thing. It was a spirit box. She whispered, "Are there any ghosts here?" There was no reply, just static. Sometimes it got louder and sometimes it got softer, but it was still just static. It was driving us nuts. So Taylor was getting annoyed with the lack of response. So she yelled, "Is anybody here?" and held the spirit box up to her ear. The static suddenly got louder, as if it boomed, and Taylor dropped the spirit box in pain as she fell to the floor. We all rushed over there to pick her up from the floor, as she was holding her ear in pain. We decided to stop the ghost hunt and instead just explore the asylum. She still held out the EMF reader though. It remained green or light yellow the entire time. Well, that wasn't until we reached this giant hall full of cells. It began to flash dark orange in the second highest level. We all looked at each other before proceeding to the giant hall. We explored the first floor of the hall and nothing really disturbed us. We split up afterwards. Taylor and Mandy explored the left side of the second floor and Ann and I explored the right side of the second floor. Everything was fine until we heard a scream from Taylor and Mandy's side. I looked behind me and there I found Taylor and Mandy practically glued onto each other in front of an old man in cell 24. Ann and I rushed to Taylor and Mandy, still standing there in shock. The man looked at us and said, "Are you the newest patients?" "What are those uniforms?" he asked. We didn't know how to reply to that. "What do you mean patients? What are you even doing here? I thought they all evacuated the patients," Mandy managed to mutter. He scratched his head and walked towards us. We shuffled backwards a bit, but we were curious about his story. I believe they are still here. I feel it. They're our family, he said. It sent a shiver down our spines. We looked around us. Every cell was empty except for this one. He walked away after that, just wandering into the halls. He looked like he knew where he was going, so we didn't stop him. We just watched him slowly walk out of the hall. The look of pure horror still etched into our faces. We walked into his cell, cell 24. There was a shabby little bed, a table, and a chair beside it. It was like a prison cell. Not to mention that the rotting corpse stench began getting stronger. It was disgusting. There was also a tiny end table beside the bed. We opened the first drawer, nothing. We opened the second drawer. There we found a blue journal. It was made by leather. We opened it and there we found some sort of diary journal. It soon to be owned by the old man. He had jotted down things like what he had for breakfast or cellmates he didn't like. There was a lot of them. Then we reached the last page, at least the last page with writing on it. It was the same phrase written about 3 times. Burning in the basement, burning in the basement, burn them in the basement. The last phrase was written in capital letters. Manny dropped the journal and started crying. We were mortified. What does he mean by burn them in the basement? The man was already too far away to hear our screams, so we cried all we wanted. What the heck? Was that smell coming from the basement? We all looked up in realization. The rotting corpse smell was, indeed, coming from the basement. We all hid behind Taylor, walking towards the basement door. She was the only person with any sliver of courage left in her. The smell was getting stronger and stronger. We knew it was coming from the basement. 3, 2, 1. We opened the door. It was pitch black until someone opened the light switch. The 4 of us looked at each other. We were all holding hands. Whatever opened the light switch was in the basement itself. We looked down and were mortified. Wouldn't you be too? If you found 45 asylum patients, faces all pale, looking like zombies staring directly at you. Well, other than them two, those who were eating away at fellow patient's corpse. I suppose they had been locked down there for a while. That's when one of them whispered something to another patient, and they whispered to someone else, until they collectively screamed, "You're with Clifford. You are with him." They continued screaming it as they sniffed and made sniffing motions from afar, as if they were dogs. Taylor mentioned that they were talking about the old man we found in cell 24. We all screamed from the top of our lungs and hid in the cell where they couldn't find us. We were all screaming and crying, except for Anne. She kept a straight face and just stared at Taylor, as if she was about to murder her. Nobody had enough energy to speak, so Anne spoke. "Taylor, how do you know where the basement was?" she said as we looked at her. As her crying and gasping for air turned into one dark smirk, her eyes stared right back at Anne until she spoke softly. "I watched the episode. I'm only getting out of here if everybody dies," we screamed, loud enough for the other zombie patients to hear us. Taylor ran out of the cell, locking us into it, as those zombies patients rushed towards us, banging on the rusty iron bars. We all hid behind Taylor when we walked towards the basement. She was leading us to the most of the places. She was the one who mentioned that the man from cell 24 was Clifford. We realized it too late. Taylor had already escaped. I had mentioned previously that there were almost 0 windows in the facility. Almost. One of the windows was in Clifford's cell, the one we were currently in. We looked back at the patients, and we didn't know what would they do if they got in. It was all 45 of them. We looked out of the window to see Clifford holding a lighter smirking. Then proceeded to shout, "Those in the building must burn," 3 times before tossing the lighter towards the gasoline he had. The building was now on fire. We were trapped. Anne was the only one who brought a watch, and so I asked her, "What time is it?" Desperately hoping, just hoping that it would be the time I was thinking it was. She replied, "Just above 9 p.m. I started bursting in tears. It was 9:05 p.m. That was the time I had told my sister to call the police if I wasn't home yet. The last thing we did was wait until they arrived, hoping my sister remembered. She did. We heard the sirens welling into the distance, but the patients were about to break in. We propped the bed vertically onto the gates, then proceeded to build the barricade with the table, chair, and the end table, proving to be effective even just for a while. We screamed for the police out the windows, hoping they could hear it over the roaring flames of the building. We heard spraying water, then saw people dressed in red hard hats and fireman uniforms. Someone must have reported the fire as well. Just a little longer, It has to last a little longer, Manny yelled as the patients were trying to push through the barricade. We waved to the firemen, waiting to be saved. They noticed us. The police were able to break through the lock Taylor placed in the entrance. I clutched my Bible as the barricade began to give away, just as the police arrived with their guns enough to scare the patients away. We screamed and waved our arms, waiting to be saved, as the police officers broke through the iron bars and brought us out. Thankfully, the smoke from the fire earlier was blocked by the face mask we were still wearing. The patient snarled at us while backed into a corner by the policemen holding guns up. We were saved. Finally. The one thing that continued to disturb us was they never found Clifford or Taylor. We can only assume what happened to them. I hugged my sister as I reached home, thanking her for saving my life. My parents lectured me about lying to them and doing stupid things like that. For the first time, like ever, I appreciated that lecture. Eventually, they burst into tears and we all hugged for what felt like forever. Honestly, I needed that. My parents called my friend's parents to ensure that the other girls was okay. They were, except for Taylor's parents or Taylor, wherever she was. Anyways, things like that, I'd rather not ask.
I didn't want to be one of those idiots who can't follow rules. I'm a no-sleep addict, especially these days with nothing else to fill my time. I spend endless hours scouring new and then archives for stories I haven't read yet. My favorite are rules stories. You probably know the kind. I'm a night shift guard at an abandoned mall and someone left me a strange list of rules. The OP never takes the rules seriously at first, and inevitably something creepy happens and they panic and break one. I always thought it would be so simple for me to follow the rules, just by keeping a clear head. My chance to prove myself had came unexpectedly. Hey, you still looking for a job? Tony, my roommate, asked me over dinner one night. Uncle Mike is looking for an overnight warehouse manager. I hurried to chew and swallow a huge mouthful of spaghetti. I don't have any management experience, I said. Tony waved his fork dismissively. The title's just for show. All you'd be doing is keeping an eye on the warehouse, make sure no one breaks in, and stuff. What's the pay? I asked. He responded, $25 an hour. I choked on a piece of onion as I took a gulp of water, massaging my throat, and it occurred to me that Tony was doing me a favor. We'd gotten close over 2 years of living together, and he knew that I needed the money in a bad way. Where do I sign up? I joked. Next day, an Uber dropped me off at 9 p.m. sharp at a warehouse address. The warehouse was an ugly concrete building nestled between a junkyard and a shattered dentist's office. I knew it was a dentist's office because of the rotted wood sign over the door which read happy teeth, next to a chipped picture of a cartoon emoji grinning widely with a full set of realistic teeth. I pulled open the warehouse's thick metal door and stepped inside. I found myself in a huge, mostly empty room, illuminated by strips of flickering fluorescent lights. A few wooden crates were stacked haphazardly against a far wall, next to another metal door. To my left was a small closet whose door was slightly ajar. To my right, a wooden desk with a chair behind it. On the desk, lay a silvery key and a sheet of printer paper. My heart began to beat faster as I picked up the paper and read the following print. Rules. 1. Lock the door behind you when you enter the building and again when you leave. 2. Do not open the door for anyone. If they are meant to be here, they will have a key. 3. Do not go to the back room, especially if you hear voices coming from it. 4. Ignore any unusual smells. 5. Never open the crates. If they leak, there is a mop in the janitor's closet. If you see a man in a blue striped suit, be polite to him, but do not look at his face. Rule 7. Do not call the police. They are not on your side. Rule 8. Do not talk to anyone who looks like a police officer. They are not on your side. Was this a prank? I tried to recall if I mentioned my obsession with rule stories before to Tony. After a moment, I decided that, prank or not, I'd do what I'd wished so many times the OPs of those stories would do. Keep a clear head, follow the rules. I took the key and locked the heavy metal door behind me. Then I peeked into the closet, discovering that cramped space doubled as both a janitor's closet and a restroom, containing a urinal, sink, mop, and bucket. Finally, I sat down at the desk, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling Reddit. I was proud of myself for having avoided the obvious trap. If I had gone to scope out the back room, then that something would have enticed me to open the door. No, better to stay right here. Several hours of doom scrolling later, I was sitting on my chair half dozing when a rattling sound startled me awake. I checked my phone. I heard the rattling again, coming from the front door. Someone was trying the door handle. I held my breath, staring at the jiggling handle. It occurred to me that there were no windows in the entire warehouse. No one could see in, and I couldn't see out. After a few seconds, the door hand still. Boom! The entire door shook, as if someone or something had struck it with tremendous force. My heart jackhammering in my throat. I stood up and slowly backed away. Boom, boom, boom. My back hit something cold. I was pressed against the back wall. As if a switch flipped, everything fell still and quiet again. Under my hand, I felt the rugged metal door to the back room. Had the sole purpose of the assault by the entity outside been to drive me towards this room? In the sudden silence, I heard something through the wall. It was a faint but high-pitched nibbling at just the edges of my hearing, swelling in volume before dying away again, over and over in an irregular pattern. It sounded like a crying baby. I fled back to my desk, my mind weary. Could there really be a child trapped back there? Should I call the cops? At that last thought, I snapped back to my senses. My eyes went to the printout on my desk. Do not call the police. I shook my head, smiling at the implausibility of this scenario. A baby in the back room of an industrial warehouse? I needed to keep my wits about me. Nothing else strange happened for the rest of the night. I used part of my first paycheck to buy a pair of noise-canceling headphones to shut up for my second shift, already over my ears. The noise cancellation on max. I froze as I stepped through the warehouse door. The air smelled wrong. It was coppery, like an old penny, with an unpleasant undertone that reminded me of a sewer leak, a mix of filth and decay. Coughing, I turned and locked the door. As I turned back around, something had caught my eye. The crates at the back of the warehouse were sitting in what looked like a pool of tar. Swallowing down a vague feeling of unease, I went to fetch the mop. The tar-colored substance, when I mopped it up, was gloomy like day-old gravy. The coppery smell floated around me, so strong that it almost felt like a physical thing. A mist that saturated my nostrils, my clothes, my lungs, with every shallow breath I drew. Something touched the back of my head, and my headphones slid off. I spun around, sloshing dirty water everywhere. A man stood a few feet away, with my headphones in his hand. He wore a gaudy suit, with cream white and baby blue stripes. A gold bow tie sat crooked against a stiff white collar. And his face. I quickly dropped my gaze to the floor, trying to forget my brief impression of his glittering eyes and pale lips. His voice was soft, yet thin. "Are you the new overnight manager?" he asked. Yes, sir," I forced out. "No headphones," he said. "Stay alert." I bobbed my head like a fool, while staring intently at his shiny brown shoes. "Keep up the good work," he said. The shoe shifted, and his clicking footsteps crossed the room, followed by the sound of the front door unlocking. Once I heard the door lock slide back into place, I dared to look up. The warehouse was once again empty. I quickly finished mopping up the mess by the crates. My headphones were sitting on my desk. I sank into my chair, staring at the round black paths that soaked up the dim light. Had the man come in from outside? Or had he been in the back room? My imagination, while running wild, conjured a vision of him standing unnaturally still in the dark on the other side of the wall adjacent to me. Why had he been there? How long had he been waiting? What if he wasn't the only one? I couldn't calm down. I played on my phone, paced the floor, tried to nap, but no matter what I did, I felt like 1,000 glittering eyes were boring into my back. I needed to see what was in the back room. I read and reread the rules. Do not go into the back room, especially if you hear voices coming from it. I wouldn't go in, I reasoned. I listened for voices, then open the door and take a peek. Just a peek, to make sure I was alone. I apprehensively approached the back door, noting how solid it looked, how thick the hinges were. I pressed my ear to the cool metal and closed my eyes. I was greeted by silence, broken only by my shaky breathing. Before I could lose my nerve, I yanked the door open. On the other side was a completely bare concrete room, lit by a naked light bulb dangling from the ceiling. I stared and stared, embarrassment and relief alertedly washing over me in waves. Boom! I looked around. Boom! The front door shook with the force of an unseen impact. "Police!" a voice shouted from outside. Boom! My eyes dipped to the sheet of the rules. They are not on your side. Police, open up! Boom. The inked words swam in my vision. Do not talk to anyone who looks like a police officer. They are not on your side. My vision exploded with cold stars. Next thing I remember, I was waking up in a hospital bed and being informed by a stern-faced policewoman that I was under arrest. I was too out of it at the time to follow much of what she said, but I pieced the facts together over the course of my ensuing trial. I had been unwittingly recruited by a criminal organization. The police had been after the big boss, the man in the blue and white suit. When they blew the door of the warehouse with me inside, one of the jury members threw up the photos of what was found in those crates. No one believed my protestations of my own innocence. I couldn't explain why I had ignored the crying, mopped up the blood. I couldn't describe the appearance of the man in the suit just by having been close enough to touch him. I got 40 years without parole, and my life is over. But let me leave you with this warning, in case I might save yours. If you find a strange set of rules, don't follow them.
Hey guys, I just want to say that all the stuff that I put in the video, like the art, the music, everything will be down below in the description. And I want to give a shout out to Core9, the guy that helped me make my videos. I call him Core9, but he goes by Rav. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But if you guys like the video, make sure you like and subscribe. And I really appreciate. And oh my gosh, I can't even talk right. Anyways, if you guys like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.